Hi, good morning. This is Ephraim Hulaton, and I'm here to give my speech or give a very special talk. Uh, this is actually a project with my with our subject in master's degree, which is history and philosophy of education. Now, I'm here to give you a very special, a very wonderful TED talk for this morning that I hope that you will enjoy. Now, since our topic is all about history and philosophy of education, well, we are tasked to give you our very own perspective, our point of view on what kind of philosophy or perspective or idea or paradigm that which is very suitable or very suitable or could be could be an application of this philosophy to the students. Now, before I dig through or submerge our topic within my own perspectives, but I would like to give a very short introduction, or it's just like a footnote of the different philosophies and different ideologies, perspectives, and paradigms of, of education. No, the question that philosophers and educator ask, ponder, and inquire for a very long time, for millennia, for eras and epoch, is not is nonetheless, what is education, right? I know that for the fact that many people, many academics and intellectuals have already answered these questions. Now, starting from the Middle Ages, starting from, well, way back thousands of years ago, from the ancient period, and even to the point of the pre-civilization period, there are hundreds of peoples that tried to answer it, that has that have been successful in answering these questions, right? But I'm going to give you my own perspective on what is education and what is education really meant for me. Now, the question is, what is education? How can we apply education for the students? And what is the goal? Basically, what is the goal and purpose of education per se? Now, let's dig through time. Let's take the wheels of time back in the ancient civilization. Well, if we're going to talk about the ancient civilization, it was basically they were preoccupied and they were obsessed in understanding the primal causes. Primal causes means, what is the earth? What is the universe? They were really concerned about what is the reality. Now, the education during that time was obsessed. They were preoccupied in understanding what is happening, what is the reality all about, what makes and what composes the earth. Now, that's the form of education. Now, from Tales, Anaxagoras, Anaximenes, Parmenides, that's their that is their whole that is the whole point of education. That is to understand what is, how does reality, how does the world work. So basically, they were trying to unravel, they're trying to give us an understanding about metaphysics, cosmology in a very novel sense, right? In a novelty. No? And after that, but there came the ancient philosophers, the ancient educator, one of the most influential philosopher of the time was actually Socrates. Now, Socrates believes that the central point of education is for us to know ourselves. And he said, and I quote, "An unexamined life is not worth living." So for him, it's they have already moved away from a metaphysical inquiry into an ethical inquiry, right? Like, Socrates was preoccupied not on the question, it's not on the question of metaphysics, but it was a question of ethics. And one of his famous students, Plato, right? Actually, he believes that education Plato and both Aristotle, they believe that education must be taught to students to make us to make us virtuous, right? To give us virtue rather, right? So it's so the ancient philosophy, starting from Socrates, up to the Cynics, to the Stoics, to the Epicureans, its main focus, or it was submerged into the self, right? What does it takes to be a person? How can we be a person, right? In a sense, everything was focused. Education was focused on understanding the self, and education was focused on how to be yourself, how to be a human, how to be a human being that we want, right? But in the by the fall of the Roman Empire, right, the fall of the Roman Empire, um, everything was changed, right? By the 400 AD, when the Roman Empire fell, they were overthrown by barbaric tribes. Everything everything changed, right? The philosophy, the Hellenistic period was drastically, it was a pandemonic and cataclysmic period of our time, right? But what changed, right? From the ancient philosophy to the Hellenistic period that was given to us by Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, there came the Catholic form of education. As we all know, during the Middle Ages, it was from the 500 AD to the to 500 AD and onwards. The Catholic Church has the monopoly. They have the control of the means and the ends of education. So for them, education is theological. It was very religious. It was theological in a sense that godly and heavenly scriptures, theology is much more important on understanding yourself or understanding the reality that you're living in. So it was a big paradigm shift. See what I'm getting? The education, the sense of it is education is actually revolutionizing, right? Though it was the dark times, right? It was actually the dark times, but the idea there is the Catholicism or Christianity gives light, sheds light for people, for ordinary people. But the reality is, uh, just to make it clear, it was not the ordinary people that was being educated during the dark ages, the dark times. You know, when you hear about the dark times and the dark ages, you what comes into your mind? It comes, you know, the bubonic plague, you know, kings and knights, feudalism. But we are take most of the time we are taking for granted what's the education during that time, right? Well, what is the education? What is the form of education? Now, it was very religious, it was very theological, right? And after that, Renaissance came, you know, from a theological, God-centered education, it becomes anthropomorphic. You know what I'm saying? The focus now is from humanity, little by little, an abrupt change. You know, Renaissance in a way happened amidst technological, economic, political changes in the political landscape. It was very drastic. It was abrupt. You know what I'm saying? It was abrupt in a sense that the power and the authority, the monopoly of power of the Catholicism in church was already withering away. It's already fading. You know, a brief background, there was the emergence of the nation states, you know, from the city states of the Greek, there was the emergence of the nation states, right? So what I'm trying to say here, in the Renaissance period, education becomes anthropomorphic. It was centered on arts. It was centered on humanity. There was the revival. There was actually the revival of the metaphysical inquiry. There was the revival of the cosmology. You know, if you will remember Galileo, it was their time. The Renaissance, from the Romantic period, it was Newton. It was Galileo's time. It was the peak of the intellectual fervor. You know, that's the education, right? That's the education that they were trying to do, that they were aspiring to do. Now, in the modern period, we have we have viewed, and we have gotten to this time that there were many forms and philosophies, theories and paradigms of education. But if I will be asked, from everything that I've said a while ago, a while ago, I have given you I have given you a crash course, right? A crash course of educational philosophy, right? But now, if I will be asked, now let me go back to the original question. What would be the best type of education, or what would be the ideal, the epitome of education, form of theory of education that should be given to the students? Well, I believe that education, first of all, should change society, right? It should actually bring change upon the world. As we know, with the words of Karl Marx, one of the greatest philosophers and political analysts and economists during the time, he said that the goal, philosophers have already interpreted the world in various changes, but he said that the goal is to change it. No, now education should change the world. That's why when I teach, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor in Wesleyan College of the Philippines. I teach ethics. I actually teach readings in Philippine history. And you know what? I believe that education should be restructuring. You know what I'm saying? It must reconstruct the world that we're living in. We actually know for the fact that the world is actually changing. It is in a constant flux. Just like what what Heraclitus is saying, the world is a world of flux and dialectics and contradictions, right? But what I'm saying is education should not be subservient to the status quo. You know, second one, it should be critical. You know, that's why there is the philosophy of reconstructionism. Most of the time, oftentimes, reconstructionism, the philosophy of reconstructionism is often, um, it is often related, and it was often coined to the term of critical pedagogy. From the word itself, education should make students critical. It should make it should make them critical. It should make them question things for themselves, with themselves. They should question the reality. They should question uh, the society that we're living in. And aside from that, education should be critical about the system, right? It should question the existing class relationship. It should be critical and questioning to uh, and questioning to the oppression and exploitation of the society that we're living in right now. Okay? And the third one that I would like to emphasize is education should never be neutral. Remember that one that was stated by Paulo Freire in his critical pedagogy. Education, he believes, should always side to the oppressed and the exploited. Okay, it should never be neutral, because neutrality means that you are even though you are unaware and you're unconscious of it, you are actually validating, supporting, and you are empowering. That's empowering the ruling class. That's empowering the exploitation. So if you want to utilize, if ever you want to utilize this critical pedagogy, the philosophy of reconstructionism in education, you should always take side. Okay, take side with the exploited. Take sides with the oppressed. Okay, because at the end of the day, education should be empowering. I want you to remember that. I want you to say that again and again and again. Okay, it should empower the weak. It should make them learn what they're worth and what they truly are. Right, and it must make people and students critical and questioning, inquisitive on what's happening on their society. So, let me sum this up for everyone. Philosophy of education should encourage change, reconstruction. It should bring about changes in our society. Second one, education must make students and learners critical, inquisitive, and uh, questioning to our society. The last one on that is it should make the students uh, that philosophy or education must never be neutral. It must always take sides. As you can see, the critical pedagogy and the philosophy of education is more as likely an offshoot or an offspring of the Marxism. But that is the goal of Marxism. Marxism's goal is to educate people and to liberate them, to emancipate them from oppression. So I guess that's it. I hope you enjoyed my very short TED talk. These are now for TED talk. I have given you. We have discussed some crash course or I have given you an introduction to different philosophies and theories from the very beginning, from ancient philosophies, from medieval ages, and also the last part I have given you my own uh, paradigm or philosophical or educational philosophy, which is the critical pedagogy by Paulo Freire in philosophy of reconstructionism. Thank you very much for watching. This is Efrain Mulaton, and that's that. Thank you.